Welcome to Courtney on Health, heard on MalcolmPresents.com. We're not new anymore. We're 2 years
You're
old.
not new. No, it's not new.
Not new.
Just like
legendary.
right, the legendary, exactly.
Anyway, we're a streaming platform heard on the internet. Only on MalcolmPresents.com and other
and YouTube and the Many Shades of Green.com. And Courtney is on TikTok and everything else. We'll talk about that after. So this is a Zoomcast and a podcast.
Right.
Okay, series about nutrition and exercise given by Courtney Gravenese, who's a registered dietitian with a Master of Science degree in nutrition and applied physiology.
In other words, she's highly qualified.
She's highly qualified and knows her stuff.
And by the way, very articulate, and she explains it well.
That's right.
Thank you.
See that? We're complimenting you. We didn't even get any past the first paragraph. So, Courtney, our listeners know, is an experienced nutritional and health consultant in the New York metro area and into the beyond world, and will help guide you on a path to wellness and health, because she knows all that great stuff and great information. So we're going to talk this week about mindless eating. And mindless eating is when you are disconnected from experiencing your food and your body, making it difficult for you to enjoy what you're eating. It becomes difficult to know when you're satisfied and satiated. Mindless eating can occur anytime that the brain is distracted and the person is not aware of what or how much food he or she is consuming. Most people are busy and preoccupied with work, family, and other daily obligations. We cannot always focus on our diet, and many times we don't think about what we're eating. We just kind of graze around. This can lead to binge eating episodes and feeling overfull, which can cause digestive upset and even regret and guilt. So there's a psychological component I have to get into. Mindless eating can be problematic on both a physical and mental level. In times of stress, we turn to comfort foods. I know I do. Everyone has a comfort food. It seems mac and cheese seems to be the American, or pizza. And certain social settings can lead to overeating or evoke specific cravings. And if you go to movies and parties, there's peer pressure. I mean, movies, you're going to just find the triple size popcorn. Isn't the small one better? It's like,
$15.
Oh yeah, that's the other issue of movies.
They have in the movies, if you buy the big one, you can get replacements for it.
Boy, that I can't even imagine, Courtney, what I mean, usually popcorn isn't as high in calories. It is not bad, but if you start dripping on butter and you're eating how many calories you think is in one of these large
Plus, if
ones?
it's served in a bucket the size of a manhole cover, I mean,
right.
You're locked in there for 2 hours plus.
Right.
So anyway,
So anyway, we'll talk about that. So there's a lot of distractions and work schedules, and people get bored and they eat, so eating habits change with, your environment. So Courtney has some great info on mindless eating. I love the name of that, mindless eating.
Or as we call it, noshing.
Yeah. Or grazing is the term now. And
that's a healthy term for that. We graze.
So can you give us, so what is mindless eating, and how can we eat more mindfully and not, get into that trap of giant popcorn?
Giant popcorn. Yeah. So hello to both of you. And so we've spoken about mindful eating and just being more mindfully aware of everything we do in general. There's a huge trend towards that. But to balance that and to understand the pull of mindless eating, I thought it was a good idea to address the issues surrounding this, because many individuals who are trying to, in particular, lose or manage their weight really struggle with this mindless eating. So what it is in a nutshell is any eating that's not driven by a physiologic cue, meaning hunger for calories. So that's a huge category of areas, we'll talk about them, sort of the 5 different factors that can contribute to this mindless eating, which really end up sabotaging somebody who's trying to lose weight or maintain their weight. And to your point, Maxine, even if you're perfectly fine with your weight and the mindless eating isn't necessarily problematic with regard to your overall current weight, it can be something to address, because there might be a psychological, like, well, why are you really eating? You're lonely. And we'll talk about this, but really, because this comes up so often with my client base, we clearly have a problem with overweight and obesity in this country. So it's so easy to just say, well, sure, just move more and eat less. And the devil is in the detail in there. And that eating less ends up being much more difficult if you indeed are somebody, like many Americans are, a mindless eater. So the 5 factors of mindless eating, first of all, at the top of it, you touched on it, Maxine, is pure boredom. You're simply eating without necessarily being hungry. We've all been there. And I know for a fact that many individuals, because they were home more over the last couple of years, you're sitting and you're working in your kitchen. You're not necessarily hungry. You just had lunch like an hour and a half ago, but you see food, you want to eat it. It's not driven by your gut. It's driven by perhaps a clock on the wall, on your watch, on your phone, or just something that's driving your intake, not necessarily your need for pure calories. So boredom is a big one for a lot of folks. Distracted eating. For years, we've heard about, and I'm sure you guys have too, not to eat in front of a television. Why? Because we actually have solid data that suggests that the number of calories consumed while eating in front of television, and oh, by the way, it's not just television, it's any screen. So it can be your phone screen, it could be a tablet screen, it could be what you're streaming on your computer. Doesn't matter what that is, but your calories are greater when consumed just in a presence of that distraction. So that distraction is big. And that actually includes things like conversations as well. So for some individuals, the mere act of conversing while they're eating slows them down, which is a good thing. And we'll talk about why that's important as a tip. But it also may be a trigger for them. Maybe the conversation is creating anxiety and the food is on the table in front of them, so they end up eating more. So that's the second sort of factor that can contribute to mindless eating. Purely lack of awareness. So we've spoken about this, I know, guys, on these segments before. You don't have to do it forever, but the importance of measuring your food. Now, for some people who know this, they know what 1 cup of pasta looks like. They know what a standard serving size of bread looks like. They know when they're measuring salad dressings or dressings for sandwiches or whatever it is, they know what roughly 1 tablespoon looks like. But for many folks, this is completely uncharted waters, mostly because the sizes that we see now when we're either eating in our homes or in our restaurants are so much bigger than what they were 20 years ago that we no longer know the difference between what a serving size is and what our portion size is. And there could be a big difference.
Yeah, the restaurants, I mean, it used to be you would get something like family style, right? But now, like, your plate is family style.
Yes.
It's so different, when we used to have that, it made sense. We'd pass it around. Now your entire plate is, wow, too much.
The entire plate is family size, but some of that, so that really speaks to this lack of awareness. Now, some people may know that, and it's like, oh my gosh, I got a food baby now. I've eaten so much food. So I think you touched on it too, Maxine, like eating past the point of fullness. Things like not eating out of a bag. And I feel like that's one of the oldest tips around. Like, don't leave an open bag of whatever, even if the healthiest foods. If you're driving along in a car on a road trip for 4 or 5 hours and you have a big Ziploc bag full of mixed nuts in your car with you, they're absolutely healthy. We talk about this all the time, but the reality is calories are calories. And if you're going to throw back that entire bag of nuts on your drive home, you're probably consuming more calories out of boredom. And because that big bag is there and it's unlimited, than you really, really need.
It's better
so
than fried Oreos, right?
definitely better than fried Oreos. So your heart may thank you short term, perhaps,
Right,
but again,
right.
if you're really struggling with weight loss, it can be an issue. Emotional eating, stress eating. People have different terms for it. There's no way to drive what kind of emotional eater, A, if you are one, and B, what kind of emotional eater you will be. So what I mean by that is, for some people, and I don't know if you guys know this about yourselves, like when you're under a particular amount of stress, do you tend to overeat, or are you somebody who tends to shut it down and undereat? It's not always, everybody's individual and different. I wish we could redirect that a little bit, but unfortunately for many folks, it's really hard to change the way they emotionally eat. So it becomes a comfort. We've heard of comfort foods, and there's a reason for that. People will go
I
towards.
tend to overeat when I'm lonely, when I feel lonely.
Yeah, so that's absolutely it. There's nobody necessarily there to keep an eye, not that somebody's going to be food police on you, but you feel better about yourselves. When you guys remember
That chocolate bar, yeah.
Yeah.
Or the Oreo cookie.
Yeah, remember when we spoke about the blue zones, some of our
right.
segments ago? I mean,
Sure.
one of the reasons they believe that the research seems to suggest that they are overwhelmingly healthier than, the rest of us, in part is due to the sense of community and family that's around them. So it definitely speaks to that loneliness factor. But so generally when people are sad or anxious, this becomes another factor of that mindless eating. And then lastly, the fifth one is our,
There's nothing like a good chocolate chip cookie.
well,
that'll fix you for a while. I don't know about your stomach, but it'll fix the brain. So.
Yeah. Well, some people go for, this is another thing. Not only can you not drive whether you're going to be somebody who overconsumes or underconsumes when you're stressed, but some people don't want the sweet. They want the savory. So maybe it is that whole bag of chips, or maybe it is the salty peanuts that they're eating. It almost doesn't matter, because when we've spoken about this before, the overconsumption of anything is going to contribute to weight gain. Now, there might be healthier options. We joked around about the nuts. That's certainly going to be, basically healthier than, a fried Oreo or chocolate chip cookie. But the reality is the calories are going to add up quite quickly. So some people prefer salty, over sweet. External cues are a big factor of mindlessness as well. So I want you to think about this. Even though most people don't necessarily watch regular television anymore, they're probably getting something streamed and embedded in there, even if you're not seeing commercials or ads. But keep in mind that is absolutely an external factor. There's a reason why companies spend as much money as they do to create these commercials. It's not to be nice. In part, it's to entertain you, but it's really to drive the consumption of their product, and it works. It works a lot. So that's an external cue for somebody. You're walking along somewhere, and you might see an ad. You're in the city, and you see a sign for a burger place that's right around the corner. Or, and a lot of places do this now, they pipe in certain smells or pipe out certain smells. So they know that external cueing of a smell for many people, even if they aren't physiologically hungry, is going to drive them to eat more. So you can see there's a lot of factors in that mindlessness. So it's always like, okay, well, now what? I'm affected by all that. I am totally like, I eat when I see an ad for something, or I sit there and I will eat through an entire bag of chips. So the whole trick is to figure out initially what kind of eater you are. So I know that's a weird question. If I asked you, Maxine, do you know what kind of eater you are? Are you a grazer? Are you a 2 or 3 square? Do you know where you sit?
I don't graze that much. I like to have breakfast and lunch. You know, I like meals. And if the only thing I'll graze is some cashew nuts that, you know, I have to be careful of those too, because as you say, if I open it up, I can go, you know, I can go through more than I should, but I'm trying to be conscious because of you. So, of eating those nuts, but
Well, just going back to the advertising end of things, now it's not so much as commercials, but the product
you know,
placement.
people, if you go like, right.
Product
'Cause now-
placement in the movies, it's you, which I object to now. It seems everybody's having fun. They have to have alcohol. If you notice, a lot of the movies, especially the teenagers, they're drinking. They're drinking to loosen up and they're drinking to have fun. And
Right.
So that becomes
in
mindless
advertising, it's sort of,
drinking.
I'm
Yeah.
aware of this.
So it's
Yeah.
mindless drinking, which is, you know, I know we talked about alcohol intake as well, but so you're absolutely right, Malcolm, as people move away from actually seeing actual commercials, marketers get very clever with how they can get their product messaging out. And that's embedded inside different, you know, movies and programs and things like that. So,
And years ago, I think they outlawed it. They had subliminal advertising, where they had that in movies, where it was so fast, you didn't see it, consciously see it, but you can see it, you incorporated it. So they flash a word or flash a picture
right.
that consciously you didn't see. But, you know, we're
Right.
going back to the popcorn, you know, maybe it's the popcorn. You didn't
Right.
see it, but it planted something in your mind. I think that became illegal.
Right.
I don't
Well,
know.
even if the reality is, even if it's still happening, as with many things, we might not be able to control what's happening. We can't control if there's going to be something, this subliminal messaging that's happening, or product placement. So all we can do as human beings is control the things that are manageable in our world. So that's where doing some of these tips and tricks that we're going to talk about will come into play, so that maybe not always, but more often than not, you will be able to minimize some of the mindless eating that you're doing. So let's start with it, because they're right here. We talked about, and I promise you, for anybody who's listening or watching, you do not have to do this the rest of your life. You do not have to go to your friend's house for dinner toting measuring spoons and measuring cups. That is not the point. But the point is to re-educate yourself and to seal in your brain what a serving size is of certain foods that you believe are your, you know, maybe they're a trigger food for you. Of course, this is after you've established what kind of eater you are. So that's important to know. Are you somebody who's a volume eater? And what I mean by that is you really need, you know, is a large portion of food in order to feel full. Well, that's helpful to know, because then in order to minimize total caloric intake, things like soups and salads, and we've done an episode on this before, will be to your advantage. Are you somebody who is a grazer? This is fine, but you got to keep in mind, and I see this a lot in my client base, and the research really backs this up. Those who graze, sometimes it works out perfectly well, but you're not keeping track of the calories sometimes. So it's a little nibble here, a little nibble there, and before you know it, you're way past the calorie amount that you need for the day. So are you a grazer? Then we're going to work with that. Are you somebody who's 3 squares a day? Then let's work with that. So you have to figure out first what kind of eater you are, and then work with some of these tips that we're going to talk about. Measuring out things for at least the first week or two is going to be critically helpful, because again, it will reintroduce to you how much of a certain food is, even the healthiest foods. So for example, I mean, this is a 1 cup serving. I think you guys see that right there. Even if I'm filling this with carrots, and that would be just right up there. And by the way, this is not an argument to not have carrots as a snack. They're an excellent snack. But if you're really watching calories and you're really trying to maintain or really trying to lose some weight, all calories are going to count. And if you, because you're sitting there watching a movie, or you brought this in a car ride with you, and you've blown through, 3 cups of sliced carrots on your road trip, again, they're very, very healthy, but they're not calorie free. Okay, it's about 50 calories for a cup. And if you've had a cup and a half, you've had 150 calories, which doesn't seem like a lot until you multiply events like that throughout the day, throughout the week, throughout the month. So measuring out, so you've got an idea of what a serving size is, makes it very helpful. Keeping logs food logs. Again, not for the rest of your life, but food logs help with two things. And I don't care, by the way, if I'm working with a client, I don't care if they kick it old school like this with a notebook. They can put it into some kind of device. You can do an audio recording and then have it,
I have
stored that
one.
way. There it is.
There it is.
So what's the
It's
point?
good.
Yeah. What's the point of these logs? It's twofold. One, it might identify food groups that might be, and I don't like to use the word trigger food, but those foods that you might tend to overconsume. So it might help you figure out what are those foods. The other side is, what is your mood like when you're eating? Helping you establish your fullness factor, seeing as many of us eat way past the point of our fullness. And we'll talk about eating slowly in a second. So establishing a mood along with the foods that you're putting down and what times of day really helps you identify those areas of the day or those weakest points where you need a little bit of help and a little bit more reinforcement. So they are very valuable tools. You don't have to do it forever, but again, it's an initial first start that I highly, highly recommend.
I think most people don't realize when they're full. I mean, people have to be, it's not full, they have to be stuffed. Where they have to be, where they have the uncomfortable feeling. I know I see it in myself. If I'm not conscious of it, I'll eat, especially if the food is very tasty and I like it.
Right.
I'll keep on eating until oh my God, I have to open up my pants.
Right.
I think is when you go to like a gathering or a party or something, and there's chips, there's dips, there's this, there's that. And you're just, okay, I'll have a few of these. And then 5 minutes later, okay, I'll have a few of these. And it just adds up. I mean, there's no doubt. I mean, when I was away, I had to literally stop myself and go like, I can't do one more pass of this particular table. It's just not going to work. It's not good.
Well,
one of the buffets are, go ahead, Malcolm.
Now, knowing myself, I cannot go to a buffet.
Yes.
Like when I go to Vegas and it's, $50 for all you can eat, I cannot go.
Yeah.
Because I can eat
a
lot and feel sick.
They're hard for many, many people, particularly for individuals who aren't particularly in touch. And this is not a slam against these individuals. It's a lot of us with their hunger cueing. So they're working on that strategy to be able to stop. So if you know that is, how you normally respond, try to avoid buffet environments as much as you can. Most people aren't going to parties or buffets every day, so it can be mitigated a little bit. So if you're going to that environment, and this is where sort of visual cueing comes in, rather than getting a plate this size and going up to the buffet, you're going to start with a smaller bowl, get what you want. Really, just pick what you want. Don't deprive yourself. Take what you want in there, and move away from the buffet. Have a lower calorie beverage along with it. Slow down your eating. We've discussed this before. There actually is an amount of time needed to send that message, I am full. The problem is many of us eat through that point to that stuffed point before we've allowed that time to lapse. So waiting, slowing it down. I remember, my mom, the whole trick of putting your fork down in between, like it's a little exaggerated and, but you get the point. It almost forces you to slow down. Using things like chopsticks, I wouldn't suggest that every day. Anything that can slow your pace down is going to help with that time frame to send that message, I'm full. I've often told clients, stop looking at don't eat by somebody else's clock or what the clock says. Because no matter what kind of eater you are, whether you're a grazer or you're a 3-square meal a day, you might not be hungry first thing in the morning when you wake up. This is okay. At some point, you might want to get some food in there, but really, in order to train yourself to be more in tune with your hunger cues, wait to the point that you are hungry. Feel that. Feel what that emotion is like. Then eat something. Don't wait too long. I don't want you waiting hours. Same thing for lunchtime. Just because the clock says 1 o'clock, and you might have some friends or some colleagues who are eating at 1 o'clock, That might not be your time to eat. So wait to see feel your hunger cues. Same thing in the evening. It's a practice. It's just like a muscle. If you're exercising a muscle, you have to continually work at this, and you will get to the point where it is, I'm full, I'm good, I'm done. I'm not hungry now, so I'm not going to eat. But when I do eat, I'm going to slow it down, and I'm going to use a scale, a hunger scale of, after I've finished one portion, am I still hungry? And if I am still hungry, am I like ravenous hungry, like a 10? Or is it more like a 5, 6 hungry? And then reestablish from there. It's a lot of skill work in order to move through this, but these are tips that absolutely work. You just have to give them a little bit of time.
Yeah, I mean, when I'm up, I don't eat first thing. I'll do some work, then I'll walk the dog, and before I know it, it's after 10. So I'm not really having any kind of breakfast till 10, or anything like that. And then like now I haven't eaten. So I'm way past, I munched some nuts, but that was it.
Right.
So it's everyone has their own pattern.
We're all individual, and it really does work. Again, I don't want somebody waiting all day long, and for a variety of reasons, that's not good. But the practice, the skill practice of really becoming more in tune with your hunger cues and your fullness point is a very, very valuable tool to be able to do, no matter which of these factors, these mindless factors that you're struggling with. Obviously, eliminating distractions, the ones that we spoke about. The easiest ones would be things like screens, trying as often as possible not to work at your desk. And I realize that that's impossible to avoid all the time. So maybe it's not an everyday thing, trying to remove yourself. And even if it's only 10, 15 minutes of allowing yourself to eat away from your screen and your phone is a great technique to eliminate those types of distractions. And if you're eating at home, and this is tricky for people who do more than just eat in their kitchens, right? Because some people actually use that as a workspace. It's maybe where their kids are doing homework. But at some point after a meal, and in particular, I'm talking about dinner time, because I find, at least with my client base, there's a lot of late night nibbling, going back for other stuff.
Yeah.
You not only psychologically close down the kitchen, you are going to close down the kitchen after you finish dinner, you had a normal time, clean everything up, close the lights off if you are able to, and that is that. So again, there's an actual physically shutting down the kitchen, and then there's you mentally, psychologically. The kitchen is closed for the evening, unless you're really starving.
I should put a note up on the refrigerator for my
That's
husband.
right. The kitchen's closed.
Well, I turn the main light off, so that's off, and there's just like a light.
Put a
That's
lock.
a start.
Right. There you go. That's been off for a while, so yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I also want to mention, and then I know we're probably coming close up on time. I call them sort of the before meal calorie load, and the 3 common ones that with which I'm most familiar. I hear from clients. I used to do it more often myself. So this is the eating while you're cooking calorie load. So if anybody out there is a cook, and you know exactly where I'm going with this, you might have a glass of wine, you might have a nibble here, you might have. So if you're somebody like me who's cooking most nights, those calories will add up very, very quickly. So again, as part of your assessment, assess if that might be one of the sources of the mindless eating that could be contributing to your calorie load. It's the same phenomenon with when you go to a restaurant. And actually, I see less and less bread on tables now, but it's the chips, it's the olives, it's the bread. And remember that at least for a while, was ubiquitous. If you went into a Mexican restaurant, you always got chips. If you went into an Italian restaurant, you always got bread. So that, if you throw back several pieces of bread before your meal has even gotten there, you can see
and butter it, not only bread.
Yeah, if you put the butter on that throws it off.
The chips and the salsa.
I tend to eat, when I'm making a salad, I'll munch on some salad. I don't think that's the worst thing. So that I wouldn't put that in the category of chips. I know. But I mean, I'll taste food as I'm cooking because you gotta taste stuff.
Yeah.
But you're not. But I don't see myself, eating half a bag of chips or some like a half a loaf of bread. But I can see where people could do that.
And
So.
again, for somebody who's really watching, if I'm working with a client, it's very tightly, like it's just a matter of a couple of hundred calories, might be 300 calories. That's really keeping them from maintaining or losing that weight. So we try to find calories anywhere we can, just so that it doesn't keep adding up and adding up. So again, that might not be the case for some folks, but just be aware of those sort of pre-meal calories. And the other one that I like to talk to is for any parents out there, and I know you both were parents, but it's a long time perhaps since you've made meals for your kiddos, but it's the kid cleanup calories that I like to call. And that is the role of the parent to eat whatever tidbits of scraps are left on their kids' plates. And I hear this a lot with parents as my client base. It adds up quickly. If you are moving through and eating the mac and cheese that's left in your kid's bowl, or the leftover piece of grilled cheese, or whatever it is, it doesn't matter what it is. So I don't want to waste food, but I also think that you owe it as a parent to yourself. You deserve more than your kid's scraps, right? And nowhere in any parenting magazine or book does it say that we need to be the Zambonis of our kids' plates.
Right.
So just be aware of, okay, am I doing that on a daily basis or even several times per week? Because that's, it's no fun. It's not the best food you've had, certainly. So,
well, I don't have a kiddo. I have a doggo, and my doggo
From the dog
stays
side.
right under when I'm cooking, like right by the stove. The dog is like, drop something, drop. So, but again, she gets, she likes cucumber and she likes pepper, which are okay for dogs, So I'll drop that because she's giving me those eyes, and it's like, oh God. But people give their dogs, they give their dog stuff they probably shouldn't.
Anyway, Max, I hate to say that it's time to end this.
How to end with the doggo, right?
I'm getting hungry.
All right. Well, you're in LA. It's lunch time-ish for you.
Lunchtime-ish.
Right.
No, it's a little early. I eat lunch about 1.
Oh, there you go. 1 o'clock.
Okay.
Oh, that's okay. We all have schedules, and we like to keep some things intact, right? So that was great. Thank you for all that info, Courtney.
Sure.
And thanks for joining us for Courtney on Health. To get more info, follow Courtney on her Facebook page, Courtney on Health, on Instagram at CLG Wellness, and on TikTok. That's a thing. And visit her website, CourtneyGravanese.com. For more shows, go to MalcolmPresents.com and theManyShadesOfGreen.com. This is Courtney on Health, Smart Sound Nutrition, Strong Safe Fitness, and we will catch you again next time.
By the way, this show is very apropos for the time, because this coming weekend is Labor Day, with a lot of picnicking,
a lot of mindless eating going
a
on,
lot of barbecues,
a lot of beer
and mindless eating.
Right.
Anyway, have a good Labor Day, guys.
People need to have some
Bye, guys.
fun.
You
So
too.
See you
have
next
fun.
week. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.